The bridge of the New Dawn was quiet except for the soft hum of the engines. Captain Lee Dongwoo walked slowly between the workstations, checking on his crew. They had been traveling through empty space for weeks now, looking for new planets that humans might live on someday. Dongwoo liked his job. He was 35 years old and had been captain for 3 years. The New Dawn was not the biggest ship in the human fleet, but it was his ship. 200 good people worked under his command. Most of them were scientists who studied planets and stars. "Captain," said Communications Officer Kim Minho from his station near the front of the bridge, "I am getting something weird on the long-range sensors." Dongwoo walked over to look at Minho's screen. The young officer had joined the crew just 6 months ago, but he was very good at his job. He could hear radio signals from farther away than anyone else on the ship. "What kind of weird?" Dongwoo asked. Minho touched some buttons and the speakers made a crackling sound. Through the static came a strange pattern of sounds. It went up and down like music, but it was not music. It repeated every few seconds, but each time it sounded a little different. "It is not coming from any human ship," Minho said. "I checked all our databases. This pattern does not match anything we have on record." Dongwoo felt his heart start beating faster. In all his years in space, he had never heard anything like this. Humans had found many planets with plants and animals, but never anything that could make radio signals. "Can you make it clearer?" he asked. Minho worked at his controls for several minutes. The static slowly got quieter, and the strange pattern became easier to hear. It definitely sounded like someone was trying to send a message. "Where is it coming?" "From a star system about 2 days away from here. The computer calls it Kepler 442. Dongwoo looked at the star map on the main screen. Kepler 442 was an old red star with several rocky planets around it. Their long-distance scans had shown nothing interesting about it. "Dr. Park Ji-won to the bridge, please," Dongwoo said into his communicator. Dr. Park Ji-won was the smartest person on the ship. She studied languages and how different kinds of life might communicate. She had learned 12 human languages and had written books about how aliens might talk to each other. Of course, she had never actually met any aliens before. Dr. Park arrived on the bridge in less than 5 minutes. She was a small woman with short black hair and bright, curious eyes. When she heard something new and interesting, she got excited like a child with a new toy. "You found something, Captain?" she asked. "Maybe. Listen to this." Minho played the signal again. Dr. Park stood very still and listened carefully. Her eyes were closed and her head was tilted to one side. "Play it again," she said. They listened to the signal 4 more times. Dr. Park took out her tablet computer and made notes. She drew pictures of the sound waves and wrote down numbers. "This is definitely made by someone intelligent," she said finally. "It is not natural. Someone built a machine to send this signal. Can you tell what it means?" Dr. Park looked at her notes again. "I think they are asking for help." "How can you know that?" "Look at the pattern," she said, showing him her tablet. "It repeats, but each time it gets a little higher in pitch. In human speech, when people are scared or desperate, their voices go up. This feels the same way. Someone is in trouble." Dongwoo felt cold suddenly. Somewhere in space, people he had never met were calling for help. "Set course for Kepler 442, he ordered. "Maximum speed." "Sir," said Minho, "should we call Earth first? The regulations say we must report any contact with alien life immediately." Dongwoo thought about this. The rules were very clear, but sending a message to Earth and waiting for orders would take many weeks. If someone needed help right now, weeks might be too long. "Send the report," he said, "but we are not waiting for permission. The first rule of space travel is that you help people in distress." The New Dawn turned toward the Kepler 442 system and increased speed. While they traveled, Dr. Park worked day and night to understand the alien language. She used the ship's most powerful computers to study the patterns and try to figure out what the sounds meant. 2 days later, she called the captain to her laboratory. "I think I have something," she said. Dr. Park had connected the ship's computer to several speakers. The alien signal was playing, But now there were also words and a mechanical voice mixed in with the strange sounds. "The computer is learning to translate," she explained. "It is not perfect, but listen." The speakers made crackling noises, then came words. "Help us. Our world. Dying. Please. Anyone." Dongwu felt like someone had hit him in the chest. These were not just random radio signals. These were real people begging someone to save their lives. "Keep working," he told Dr. Park. "I want to understand everything before we get there." When the new dawn reached the Kepler 442 system, everyone on the bridge stared at the main screen in shock. The third planet was glowing bright red like a hot coal. Giant cracks ran across its surface, and rivers of melted rock poured out of huge volcanoes. "The planet is dying," said Science Officer Na Sujin. "Something is wrong with the core. The whole world is breaking apart." "Do you see any signs of life?" Dongwu asked. "Yes, sir, many life signs. I count millions of them, all gathered on the northern continent where the damage is not as bad yet." "Captain," came Dr. Park's voice through the communicator. "I have translated more of their message. You need to hear this right now." Dr. Park's voice was shaking as she read, "Our world is ending. The ground burns and breaks. We asked the Great Star Councils for help, but they said we are too primitive to save. They will not waste their ships on us. We send this message hoping someone will hear. We are called Keltharians. We do not want to die. Please, if anyone hears this, remember that we existed." Nobody on the bridge said anything for a long moment. Dongwu looked around at his crew and saw his own feelings on their faces. They were sad and angry and determined all at the same time. "How many people are down there?" he asked. "About 50,000, Nasujin replied. "How many can our ship carry?" "Maybe 1,000 if we pack them into every available space and if life support can handle the load." Dongwu closed his eyes. 50,000 people needed help. His ship could only save 1,000, but that was 1,000 more than would be saved if they did nothing. "Dr. Park," he said into his communicator, "can you send them a message back?" "I think so, sir. What should I tell them?" Dongwu thought carefully. These would be the first words ever spoken between humans and another intelligent species. "Tell them this. We are humans. We heard you calling. We are coming to help you. Do not give up hope." As the new dawn moved closer to the dying planet, Captain Lee Dongwu made a decision that would change everything. He did not know if they could really save 50,000 aliens. He did not know if his bosses back on Earth would be angry. He did not even know if these aliens could be trusted. But he knew one thing without any doubt. When good people hear someone calling for help, they answer that call. "Attention all crew," he announced to the entire ship. "This is your captain speaking. We have found people in terrible danger, and we are going to help them. I know this was not in our mission plan. I know it will be hard and dangerous, but this is what humans do. We do not abandon people who need help." The rescue was about to begin. Captain Lee Dongwu stood in the main shuttle bay of the New Dawn, watching his crew work like he had never seen before. It had been only 6 hours since they arrived at the dying planet, but already the ship looked completely different. Engineer Kim Minho was on his hands and knees pulling apart wall panels to install new air recycling systems. Sweat ran down his face as he worked with tools in both hands. Next to him, a tall alien with crystal-like skin was helping him hold pieces in place. The alien was named Voktel, and he was the first Keltharian to come aboard their ship. Dr. Park Jiwon had managed to translate enough of their language to arrange the meeting. When Voktel saw what the humans were trying to do, he immediately offered to help. "Captain," called out Commander Nasujin from across the bay, "we have a problem." Dongwu walked over to where Na was standing next to a group of human technicians. They were looking at readouts on a portable computer screen. "The planet is getting worse faster than we thought," Na explained. "The seismic activity has increased by 30% in just the last few hours. We might have days instead of weeks." Dongwu felt his stomach tighten. They had planned for weeks to evacuate the Keltharian cities. If they only had days, it would be almost impossible. "How many people have we brought up so far?" he asked. "About 200, Na replied. "At this rate, we can maybe save 2,000, before the planet becomes completely uninhabitable. 2,000 out of 50,000. It was better than nothing, but it still meant 48,000 people would die. Then we work faster, Dongwu said simply. He activated his communicator to speak to the entire ship. All crew, this is the captain. I know you are all working as hard as you can, but we need to work even harder. The situation on the planet is getting worse quickly. Every minute we save might mean another life rescued. Down on the planet's surface, the rescue operation was like nothing humans had ever attempted before. Dr. Park Ji-won stood in the center of what had once been a beautiful, crystal city. But now half the buildings were cracked and broken from constant earthquakes. The Keltharians were unlike anything she had imagined. They looked somewhat like humans, but their skin was made of a substance that looked like living glass. When they spoke, their bodies made soft musical sounds. Even in their panic and fear, they moved with a strange grace. Tazara was the leader of this city. She was old even by Keltharian standards, and the crystal formations on her shoulders showed that she was highly respected. She had been organizing the evacuation since the humans arrived. Dr. Park, Tazara said in her musical voice, your people are doing something we did not think was possible. What do you mean? Park asked. The great Star Councils told us we were not worth saving. They said primitive species like us were not important enough to waste resources on. But your people risked their lives for strangers. Before Dr. Park could respond, the ground shook violently. In the distance, a new volcano had started erupting, sending bright orange lava high into the dark sky. We need to move faster, Dr. Park said into her communicator. The northern continent is becoming unstable too. Back on the ship, engineer Kim Minho was working with 3 other humans and 2 Keltharians to modify the cargo bays. They had removed all the normal equipment and were installing systems that could keep aliens alive during the trip to safety. Minho called out Chief Medical Officer Dr. Yu Hana. We have another problem. The Keltharians need a different mixture of gases to breathe. Our normal air will make them sick over time. Minho wiped sweat from his forehead and looked at the Keltharian engineer Voktel. Can you help us understand what they need? Voktel's crystal skin changed colors slightly, which Dr. Park had told them meant he was thinking hard. Our people need more of the gas you call nitrogen and less oxygen, but I think I can build a converter using parts from both our technologies. For the next 4 hours, Minho and Voktel worked together like they had known each other for years. The human provided the basic engineering knowledge, while the Keltharian showed him how their crystal technology could make the systems much more efficient. You know, Minho said as they connected the final pieces, your people are really good at this. Your technology is different from ours, but in some ways it is better. Voktel's skin shifted to a warm golden color. Dr. Park had said this meant happiness or gratitude. Your people came to help us when no one else would. Of course we want to help you help us. Meanwhile, on the planet's surface, the evacuation was becoming more dangerous by the hour. Commander Na Sujin was coordinating shuttle flights between the ship and the planet, but each trip was harder than the last. Shuttle 3, be careful on your approach, she radioed to the pilots. There are new lava flows near the landing zone. Copy that, Commander, came the reply. We see it. Going to try landing zone beta instead. The shuttles were making constant trips, bringing up as many Keltharians as they could fit, but it was not enough. Even working at maximum speed, they could only bring up a few hundred people per hour. Dr. Park was helping organize the evacuees when something happened that she would never forget. A section of the Crystal City started to collapse, trapping a group of Keltharian children under the rubble. Without thinking, 3 human crew members ran toward the falling buildings. Lieutenant Santos, Engineer Chen, and medical technician Kim Hai ran straight into the danger zone. They used their tools and their bare hands to dig through the crystal debris, while aftershocks continued to shake the ground around them. Tazara watched in amazement as the humans risked their lives for Keltharian children they had never met before. When the children were finally pulled to safety, she saw something in the humans' faces that she had never seen from other species. They were not doing this for reward or recognition. They were doing it because it was right. Your people are very different from others we have met, she told Dr. Park. How so? Park asked. Most species only help their own kind. But your humans help anyone who needs it. Even us. And you just met us today. As the rescue continued through the night, Captain Dongwu made a decision that would push his ship and crew beyond all safe limits. He ordered that all non-essential systems be shut down to save power for life support. The crew quarters were converted into refugee housing. Even his own captain's cabin was given to a family of Keltharians. "Sir," said his first officer, "we are way over safe capacity. If something goes wrong with life support, we could lose everyone." Dongwu looked out at the cargo bay, which was now filled with hundreds of crystal-skinned refugees. Keltharian families huddled together, scared but grateful. Their children made soft musical sounds that somehow seemed like laughter despite everything. "Then we make sure nothing goes wrong," he said. By the end of the second day, they had rescued nearly 3,000 Keltharians. It was more than anyone had thought possible, but it was still only a small fraction of those who needed saving. That night, as exhausted human crew members took short breaks, something beautiful happened. The Keltharian refugees began to sing. Together, a harmonious sound that seemed to resonate through the ship's hull. It was their way of saying thank you. Dr. Park found Tezera sitting near one of the viewing windows, looking back at their dying world. "I am sorry we cannot save everyone," Park said quietly. Tezera's crystal skin glowed softly in the starlight. "Dr. Park, your people have already done the impossible. You came when no one else would. You risk everything for strangers. This is not duty. This is something much greater." Outside the window, the planet continued to tear itself apart. New cracks appeared across its surface, and more volcanoes erupted every hour. Time was running out. But inside the new dawn, humans and Keltharians worked together with a determination that surprised everyone. They were not just trying to save lives anymore. They were building something new. A friendship between species that had never existed before. As Captain Dongwu walked through his overcrowded ship, seeing his crew sharing their food with alien refugees and alien engineers working alongside human technicians, he realized something important. This rescue mission was changing both species. The humans were learning that they were capable of greater compassion than they had ever imagined. And the Keltharians were learning that not all species in the galaxy were selfish and cruel. Whatever happened next, nothing would ever be the same. 6 months had passed since the rescue, and the human colony world of New Terra looked completely different. Captain Lee Dongwu, now promoted to admiral, walked through what had once been a simple farming settlement. Today, it was a bustling city where humans and Keltharians lived and worked together. The change had started almost immediately after the new dawn arrived with 3,000 Keltharian refugees. The colonial government had been worried about housing and feeding so many new people. But those worries quickly disappeared when they saw what the Keltharians could do. Dr. Yu Hana, the colony's chief terraforming specialist, stood in her new laboratory watching something that should have been impossible. Tezera, the elderly Keltharian leader, was holding a small crystal in her hands. The crystal was glowing with soft blue light, and somehow it was making the air in the room cleaner and more breathable. "I still do not understand how it works," Dr. Yu said to her assistant. "The Keltharians call it harmonic resonance," replied the assistant, a young man named Lee Jaewon. "Their crystals can change the chemical composition of gases just by vibrating at certain frequencies." Dr. Yu shook her head in amazement. "With this technology, we could terraform dead planets in decades instead of centuries." That was exactly what was happening on New Terra. The Keltharians had offered their crystal technology freely to help improve the human colony. Working together, they had built atmospheric processors that could change the air composition of entire continents. In Disur, the engineering district, Kim Minho was having the time of his life. He spent his days working with Voktel, the young Keltharian engineer who had helped during the rescue. Together they had created machines that neither species could have built alone. "Look at this," Minho said excitedly, pointing to a device that looked like a cross between human electronics and Keltharian crystal formations. Your harmonic technology makes our power system 60% more efficient. Voktel's crystal skin glowed with happy golden colors. And your mathematical knowledge helps us create crystal matrices we never thought possible. My people always wondered why our technology seemed limited. Now I think it is because we were working alone. Their collaboration had created something amazing. Hybrid technology that was better than anything either species had made before. Word of their success had spread throughout human space, and scientists from dozens of colonies were asking to visit New Terra. But the real magic was happening in the schools and neighborhoods. Human children played games with young Keltharians, learning to make musical sounds with their voices while the alien children practiced human languages. The two species were becoming friends in a way that adults sometimes found difficult, but children seemed to understand naturally. Dr. Park Ji-won had been promoted to head of xenological studies for the entire colony. She spent her time documenting the cultural exchange between the species and helping translate when communication problems arose. But mostly, she just watched in wonder as barriers between the species disappeared. "It is beautiful," she told Admiral Dongwu one evening as they watched human and Keltharian families having dinner together in the central plaza. 6 months ago, we had never met another intelligent species. Now look at them. Dongwu nodded, but he looked worried. "I just hope we can keep it this way." "What do you mean?" Before Dongwu could answer, his communicator buzzed with an urgent message. "Admiral, you need to come to the communication center immediately. We are receiving a transmission from the hegemony of Sek." Dongwu's blood went cold. The hegemony of Sek was one of the most powerful military empires in the galaxy. They controlled dozens of star systems and had a reputation for taking what they wanted by force. At the communication center, a large alien face filled the main screen. The being looked like a mixture of reptile and insect, with multiple eyes and sharp teeth. This was General Vaxor, one of the hegemony's most feared commanders. "Human colony administrator," General Vaxor said in a harsh voice. "I am here to discuss the illegal harboring of unclaimed refugee species." "I am Admiral Lee Dongwu," Dongwu replied calmly. "These refugees are under human protection. You have no authority to grant protection to non-council species," Vaxor said. "The Keltharians are unclaimed salvage. Under galactic law, they belong to whoever finds them." "They are not property," Dongwu said firmly. "They are people." General Vaxor's multiple eyes narrowed. "The hegemony has reviewed the Keltharian technology. Their harmonic crystals could be useful weapons. We will arrive in 1 standard week to collect them. And if we refuse, then you will discover why the hegemony controls 47 star systems." The transmission ended, leaving the communication center in worried silence. Dr. Park Ji-won was the first to speak. "Can they really just take the Keltharians?" Commander Nasujin, who had also been promoted and now served as the colony's military coordinator, checked her tablet computer. "According to galactic law, refugee species without council membership have no legal rights. Technically, the hegemony could claim them." "What does Earth say about this?" someone asked. Dongwu had already sent urgent messages to Earth Command, but the reply had been disappointing. Earth was still a relatively small player in galactic politics. The government did not want to start a war with the hegemony over alien refugees. That evening, Dongwu called a meeting with the Keltharian leaders. Tezara, Voktel, and several other respected members of their community gathered in the colony's main conference room. "We wanted you to hear this from us first," Dongwu explained, telling them about the hegemony's demands. The Keltharians listened, in silence. When Dongwu finished, Tezara spoke first. "So we will be slaves again," she said sadly. "Different masters, same chains." "No," Dongwu said firmly. "We will not let that happen." "Admiral," said Voktel, "your people have already done more for us than we ever dreamed possible. We cannot ask you to fight a war for us." "You are not asking," Dongwu replied. "We are choosing." Over the next few days, the colony began to prepare. It was not much of a military force, a few patrol ships, some defensive weapons, and about 1,000 trained soldiers. Against the hegemony's war fleet, they would not last long, but something unexpected started to happen. The Keltharians approached Dongwu with an offer that surprised everyone. "Admiral," Tazara said, "we want to help defend our new home." "Your people are not soldiers," Dongwu replied gently. "No, but we have something the hegemony does not expect. Our harmonic crystals can do more than just clean air and power machines." She showed him to a new laboratory where Keltharian scientists had been working in secret. Inside were crystal formations unlike anything the humans had seen before, larger, more complex, and glowing with different colors. "These are shield crystals," explained Voktel. "We never told the Galaxy Councils about them because we were afraid they would be used as weapons. But now to protect our friends, we share this secret." Dr. Yu Hana ran tests on the shield crystals and could hardly believe the results. "These could protect an entire city from orbital bombardment," she told Dongwu. "Maybe even a whole planet." As the week passed, humans and Keltharians worked together to install the shield systems around New Terra. It was a desperate gamble, but it was their only chance. On the last day before the hegemony's arrival, something else unexpected happened. Ships began arriving from other star systems, not to attack but to help. Word had spread throughout the galaxy about the human colony that was willing to fight a war to protect alien refugees. The Altarian merchant guilds sent 3 ships. The Zephyrian Science Council sent 2. Even some member species of the Galactic Council quietly sent support, though they could not officially help. Admiral Hong Sunho, Dongwu's old friend from the Earth Fleet, arrived with a small task force. Earth Command could not officially authorize this, he said with a grin. But they also could not stop a group of ships from getting lost and accidentally ending up here. As the human and alien ships took positions around New Terra, Dongwu realized that something important was happening. This was not just about protecting the Keltharians anymore. It was about what kind of galaxy they all wanted to live in. Standing on the observation deck with Tazara, watching the mixed fleet prepare for battle, he thought about how much had changed since that first distress signal. "Your people gave us more than just a new home," Tazara said softly. "You gave us hope that there is still goodness in the universe. And your people gave us something even more valuable," Dongwu replied. "You showed us what we could become. When we worked together, tomorrow they would find out if friendship was stronger than fear." The hegemony fleet arrived at dawn, their massive warships blocking out the sun as they moved into orbit around New Terra. From the colony's defense center, Admiral Li Dongwu counted 37 enemy ships, including 3 dreadnoughts that could destroy a planet by themselves. "They brought enough firepower to conquer a solar system," said Commander Nasujin as she studied the tactical displays. "Against our 12 ships, this should be over in minutes." But Dongwu was not looking at the enemy fleet. He was watching the mixed group of human and alien ships that had come to help defend New Terra. Ships from 6 different species flew together in formations that had never existed before in galactic history. "Open a channel to the hegemony flagship," Dongwu ordered. General Vaxor's reptilian face appeared on the main screen, his multiple eyes gleaming with confidence. Behind him, Dongwu could see the bridge of a massive warship filled with weapons and soldiers. "Human Admiral," Vaxor said in his harsh voice, "you have assembled an impressive collection of ships. It will not matter. Surrender the Keltharians, now, and we will allow your colony to continue existing." "The Keltharians are free beings under our protection," Dongwu replied calmly. "They have chosen to stay here with us. Choice is a luxury for species that matter. The Keltharians are useful tools, nothing more. You have 1 hour to begin transferring them to our ships." The transmission ended, leaving the defense center in tense silence. Everyone knew that in 1 hour, the most important battle in the colonies, history would begin. Down in the main city, something remarkable was happening. Instead of hiding in shelters, thousands of human and Keltharian families were gathering in the central plaza. They held hands and sang together, human voices mixing with the musical tones of the Keltharians. Dr. Park Ji-won stood with Tazara and other community leaders, watching the crowd. "They are not afraid," she said in wonder. Why should they be? Afraid? Asked Hizara. Today we find out what friendship really means. At the Shield Control Center, Dr. Yu Hana was working with Voktel and a team of Keltharian technicians to power up the planetary defense system. The harmonic crystals were glowing brighter than anyone had ever seen before, creating a network of energy that surrounded the entire planet. Are you sure this will work? Dr. Yu asked Voktel. We are sure it will work, Voktel replied, his crystal skin shifting to determined silver colors. What we do not know is if it will be enough. In space above New Terra, Admiral Hyung Sunho was coordinating the defense fleet from his flagship. The ships were arranged in a protective formation around the planet, but everyone knew they were vastly outnumbered. Admiral Dongwu, came a transmission from one of the Altarian merchant ships. Our weapons are not designed for military combat. We cannot promise much in a fight. You being here is enough, Dongwu replied. Sometimes the most important battles are won by showing others what is worth fighting for. As the hour deadline approached, more ships continued to arrive. Not military vessels, but civilian craft from dozens of species. Merchant ships, exploration vessels, even passenger liners came to witness what was happening at New Terra. Word was spreading across the galaxy through subspace communications. On hundreds of worlds, people were watching to see if a small human colony would really fight the powerful hegemony to protect alien refugees. When the hour was up, General Vaxor's fleet moved into attack formation. The massive dreadnoughts powered up their planet-killing weapons while smaller ships prepared to launch fighters. Last chance, humans, came Vaxor's transmission. Surrender the Keltharians or watch your world burn. Admiral Dongwu looked around, the defense center at his mixed crew of humans and aliens working together. Then he activated the communication system to broadcast to the entire galaxy. My name is Admiral Lee Dongwu of the human colony New Terra. 6 months ago we heard a distress call from a dying world. We could have ignored it. We could have said it was not our problem. Instead, we chose to help. His voice was calm and steady as he continued. Today, the hegemony of Sec demands that we hand over our friends to be used as slaves. They say the Keltharians are just tools to be owned. We say they are people with the right to choose their own destiny. Dongwu paused, looking out at the enemy fleet. We know we are outnumbered. We know we might not survive this battle. But some things are worth fighting for, even if you cannot win. Friendship is worth fighting for. Freedom is worth fighting for. The right to help others is worth fighting for. He closed the channel and turned to his crew. All ships, this is Admiral Dongwu. Defend New Terra. The battle began immediately. The hegemony dreadnoughts fired their massive weapons at the planet, beams of energy that should have cracked the world in half. But instead of destroying the surface, the beams hit the Keltharian shield network and scattered harmlessly into space. Impossible. General Vaxor's voice came over the communication channels. No planetary shield can stop dreadnought-class weapons. But the Keltharian crystals were doing more than just deflecting attacks. They were resonating with each other, creating a harmonic frequency that actually made the shield stronger with each hit it absorbed. Dr. Yu Hana watched the energy readings with amazement. The crystals are learning from each attack and adapting. This shield is getting more powerful, not weaker. In space, the defense fleet was fighting desperately against overwhelming odds. Admiral Sunho's ships used hit-and-run tactics, striking fast and then retreating behind the shield network. The Altarian merchants used their superior speed to distract enemy fighters, while the Zephyrian science ships provided sensor data to coordinate the defense. But the most inspiring sight was the civilian ships that had come to witness the battle. Instead of fleeing when the fighting started, they formed a protective ring around New Terra, broadcasting messages of support to every world in the galaxy. This is Captain Yalara of the Centaurian passenger ship Peaceful Journey, came one transmission. We are civilians, but we stand with New Terra. If the galaxy allows this kind of cruelty to continue, none of us will be safe. Similar messages came from dozens of other ships, traders, explorers, colonists, and refugees from across the galaxy, all speaking with one voice. They would not stand by and watch evil triumph. On the planet's surface, something even more remarkable was happening. The Keltharians had made a decision that shocked everyone. Led by Tazara, thousands of them were volunteering to surrender themselves to save the human colony. "We cannot let your people die for us," Tazara told Admiral Dongwu over the communication system. "We will go with the hegemony if it means New Terra survives." But the humans refused. "We do not trade friends for safety," Dr. Park Ji-won announced. "We all stay together, or we all face whatever comes together." The battle raged for hours, with the hegemony fleet unable to break through the crystal shields or destroy the defending ships. General Vaxor became increasingly frustrated as his superior numbers failed to produce victory. Then something happened that changed everything. Ships began arriving from the core worlds of the galaxy, not civilian vessels this time, but military, fleets from major council species. "This is Fleet Admiral Korvac of the Andorian Defense Force," came a new transmission. "By order of the Galactic Council emergency session, all hostilities will cease immediately." General Vaxor's image appeared on screen, his reptilian features twisted with rage. "The Council has no authority here. These are unclaimed refugees. The Yin situation has changed," Admiral Korvac replied calmly. 1 hour ago, the Galactic Council voted to grant the Keltharians emergency membership status. They are now protected under Council law. But that was not all. Ships from the Rigel Confederation, the Tau Ceti Alliance, and even some hegemony member worlds began arriving to support New Terra. The small human colony had become the center of the largest peaceful gathering of species in galactic history. "Admiral Dongwu?" came a transmission from the Council flagship. The emergency session was called after receiving over 10 million requests from citizens across the galaxy demanding protection for New Terra. Your broadcast was heard on every civilized world. As more and more ships arrived to support the colony, General Vaxor realized his position had become impossible. He was no longer facing a small human settlement. He was confronting the moral outrage of an entire galaxy. "This is not over," he snarled before ordering his fleet to withdraw. But it was over, in the most important way. As the hegemony ships left the system, the space around New Terra was filled with vessels from dozens of species, all there to celebrate something unprecedented in galactic history. Admiral Dongwu stood on the observation deck of the Defense Center, watching the celebration begin. Humans and Keltharians embraced in the streets below while alien ships fired ceremonial salutes in orbit above. "We did it," said Commander Nasujin, still hardly believing what had happened. "No," Dongwu replied, looking out at the incredible fleet of different species that had come to their aid. "We all did it. Every single person who decided that friendship was more important than fear." Dr. Park Ji-won joined them at the window, tears of joy in her eyes. 6 months ago, we were just exploring empty space. Today, we helped create the largest alliance in galactic history. Tazara approached them, her crystal skin glowing with colors that had no human name but clearly meant grat. 2 years after the battle at New Terra, the galaxy looked completely different. Dr. Park Ji-won stood in the Great Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council, preparing to address representatives from over 300 species. As the new ambassador for interspecies cooperation, she was about to present something that would change civilization forever. "Honored delegates," she began, her voice carrying across the massive chamber. 2 years ago, a small human colony made a simple choice. When we heard someone calling for help, we answered. Today, I want to show you what happened because of that choice. The main display screen showed images from across the galaxy, images that would have been impossible to imagine before the New Terra incident. On Rigel Prime, human engineers worked alongside insectoid Zephyrians to build new cities. In the Altarian trade systems, Keltharian crystal technology was helping terraform dead worlds. On dozens of planets, different species lived and worked together in harmony. "We call this the resonance effect," Dr. Park continued. "Like the harmonic crystals of our Keltharian friends, acts of kindness create vibrations that spread across space and time, growing stronger as they travel. In the audience, Admiral Lee Dongwu watched with pride as his former crew member presented their proposal to the galaxy's most powerful leaders. Next to him sat Tezera, now the first non-council species to be granted full diplomatic status. The story of New Terra had spread to every civilized world in the galaxy, carried by the thousands of ships that had witnessed the battle. But more than just a story, it had become a movement. On the industrial world of Kepler-7, workers had gone on strike until their government agreed to help relocate refugees from war-torn systems. The Centaurian colonies had opened their borders to any species seeking peaceful settlement. Even some of the minor hegemony worlds had declared independence to join what people were calling the Friendship Alliance. The economic benefits alone are remarkable, Dr. Park told the assembly, showing charts and graphs on the main screen. Planets that have adopted interspecies cooperation show productivity increases of up to 40%. Trade between alliance worlds has grown by 300%. But the real magic was happening at a deeper level. In the 2 years since New Terra, over 50 major conflicts had been resolved through peaceful negotiation. Pirates and raiders found it harder to operate when entire systems were working together. Scientific discoveries that used to take decades were now happening in months as different species shared their knowledge. Ambassador Korvac of the Andorian Defense Force stood to address the assembly. The Andorian government has studied the New Terra model extensively. We believe that formal adoption of the friendship protocols could end the cycle of fear and mistrust that has plagued our galaxy for millennia. The friendship protocols were Dr. Park's masterpiece, a new set of laws based on the simple idea that all intelligent life had value. Species could not be owned or enslaved. Refugees had the right to seek help, and any world that offered aid to those in need would receive protection from the entire alliance. But not everyone was happy with these changes. General Vaxor of the hegemony of Sex stood from his delegation's seats, his reptilian features twisted with anger. These naive ideals will destroy galactic stability, he declared. The strong have always ruled the weak. That is the natural order. These humans and their pet crystals seek to overturn millions of years of evolution. A murmur of disagreement rippled through the assembly. Many species that had once feared the hegemony now had the courage to speak against them. General Vaxor, replied Ambassador Tezara in her musical voice, your people once tried to claim us as property. Today our technology helps feed billions across the galaxy. Which approach has created more value for civilization? The general had no answer for that. Keltharian agricultural crystals were now used on over 200 worlds, ending hunger. On planets that had struggled with food shortages for centuries. Their terraforming technology was turning dead rocks into garden worlds in record time. What the hegemony and other military powers had failed to understand was that the Keltharians had not shared their most basic technologies during their years of isolation. It was only after being saved by the humans that they revealed the true extent of their capabilities. Our people learned long ago that hoarding knowledge only leads to stagnation, Vokhtel explained to a group of scientists after the assembly session. The young Keltharian engineer was now the director of the Interspecies Technology Exchange, the galaxy's most important research institution. But why did you never share these technologies before? Asked Dr. Yuhana, who had become famous across the galaxy for her terraforming work. Vokhtel's crystal skin shifted to sad blue colors. Because no one ever asked for our help. They only demanded our submission. The humans were the first species to treat us as equals. This was the key insight that was reshaping galactic civilization. For thousands of years, advanced species had conquered or ignored less developed ones. But the humans had shown that cooperation created better results than domination. The proof was everywhere. The Zephyrian science councils had developed faster than light, communication by combining their quantum research with human computer technology. The Altarian merchants had created new trade routes that benefited everyone instead of just the powerful. Even some former hegemony worlds were discovering that peaceful cooperation was more profitable than military conquest. It is like the old human saying, Admiral Dongwu told a gathering of military officers from across the galaxy. You catch more flies with honey than with vinegar. What are flies? Asked a confused Rigelian commander. Dongwu laughed. small flying insects. The point is that kindness gets better results than force. This philosophy was being tested in real conflicts across the galaxy. When the Outer Rim territories erupted in civil war, instead of sending armies, the Friendship Alliance sent relief, supplies, and mediators. The fighting stopped within months as both sides realized they could gain more through cooperation than conquest. When space pirates attacked the Tau Ceti shipping lanes, instead of hunting them down, the Alliance offered them legitimate jobs helping to protect the same ships they used to rob. Most of the pirates accepted, becoming some of the most effective patrol captains in the sector. "You humans have a strange way of solving problems," Admiral Korvac told Dongwu during a joint military exercise. "You turn enemies into friends, instead of simply defeating them. Why destroy something when you can fix it instead?" Dongwu replied. But the most remarkable change was happening among the young people of different species. On New Terra, which had become the unofficial capital of the Alliance, human and alien children played together as if they had never known a time when their species were strangers. Schools throughout Alliance space were now teaching what they called universal friendship, the idea that all intelligent beings shared common hopes and dreams regardless of what they looked like or where they came from. "My daughter speaks 4 alien languages," said Commander Nasujin, now the director of Alliance Security. "When I was her age, I had never even seen an alien. She thinks that is the strangest thing she has ever heard." The children were creating friendships that their parents had never imagined possible. Human kids learned to make music with their voices like Keltharians. Young Zephyrians practiced human sports. Altarian children shared their mathematical games with everyone. These friendships were creating a generation that would never accept the old ways of fear and suspicion. They were growing up believing that cooperation was normal and that helping others was what intelligent beings did. "In 20 years, these children will be the leaders of their species," Dr. Park told the Galactic Council. "They will build a galaxy where war is as obsolete as slavery." But the Alliance still faced serious challenges. The core hegemony worlds remained hostile, though several border systems had already defected. Some ancient species considered the changes to be too fast and too radical. Conservative factions worried that traditional cultures would be lost in the rush to embrace interspecies cooperation. "Change is never easy," Tazara acknowledged during a cultural preservation conference, "but change that preserves the best of the past while building a better future is worth the difficulty." The Keltharians had become the perfect example of this principle. They had maintained their musical culture and crystal technology while embracing new ideas from other species. Their cities on New Terra were uniquely beautiful, combining human engineering with Keltharian artistry. As the 3rd year of the Alliance approached, something unprecedented happened. The Galactic Council voted to dissolve itself and create a new governing body based on the Friendship Protocols. The new Galactic Cooperation Council would have representatives from every intelligent species, regardless of their technology level or political power. Decisions would be made based on what benefited everyone, not just the strong. "Today marks the end of 10,000 years of galactic history," Dr. Park announced to the celebrating crowds on New Terra. "Tomorrow begins something entirely admirable." Dongwu stood with his old crew, watching fireworks light up the sky above their colony. Human and alien families celebrated together in the streets, while ships from hundreds of worlds shared the moment through galactic communiques. 5 years had passed since Captain Li Dongwu first heard that desperate distress call from a dying world. Now Admiral Dongwu walked through the memorial gardens of New Terra, a place that had become the most visited site in the galaxy. The gardens were beautiful beyond anything humans had ever created alone. Keltharian crystal trees grew alongside earth flowers, while water features designed by Zephyrian artists played music in the wind. Altarian mathematics had been used to create patterns in the walkways that somehow made visitors feel peaceful just by looking at them. But the most important part of the memorial was the wall of names, carved into living crystal that glowed softly. In the evening light were the names of every human crew member who had participated in the original rescue mission. Next to each human name was a Keltharian harmony crystal, singing quietly in frequencies that somehow expressed gratitude in a language deeper than words. Captain Santos, Engineer Chen, Dr. Park Jiwan, Commander Nasujin, Engineer Kim Minho, Dongwu read the familiar names as he did every time he visited. At the bottom of the wall, new names were still being added. People from dozens of species who had died helping others in the years since New Terra. "Admiral?" came a young voice behind him. Dongwu turned to see a group of children on a school trip. Half were human, half were Keltharian, but they moved together like a single group of friends. Their teacher was a tall Zephyrian whose compound eyes showed the patient kindness that had become common among educators throughout the Alliance. "Yes?" Dongwu replied with a smile. A human girl of about 8 years old stepped forward. "Are you really the Captain Dongwu from the stories?" "I am," he said, kneeling down to her level. "Though I am an admiral now." A Keltharian boy, his crystal, skin glowing with excited yellow colors, asked, "Is it true that your people came to help us even though you had never met us before?" "That is true. We heard your people calling for help, and we came as fast as we could." The children looked at each other with expressions of wonder. They had grown up in a galaxy where different species helped each other all the time. The idea that this had once been unusual was fascinating to them. "Why did you help us?" asked another child. Dongwu thought about the question seriously. "Because it was the right thing to do. When someone needs help, good people help them. It does not matter if they look different or come from a different world." "Teacher Zeke says that kindness is like gravity," said the human girl. "It pulls everything together and makes the universe work better." Dongwu smiled at the Zephyrian teacher, who made a complex gesture with her forearms that meant agreement and appreciation in her species' language. As the children continued their tour, Dongwu walked to his favorite spot in the gardens, a small hill that looked out over New Terra City. What he saw there still amazed him, even after 5 years. The city had grown from a simple farming colony into the unofficial capital of what people now called the Cooperative Galaxy. Spires of human steel reached toward the sky next to Keltharian crystal towers that sang in the wind. Zephyrian biodomes created perfect climates for plants from dozens of worlds, while Altarian mathematical sculptures turned empty spaces into works of art. Over 3 million beings from 47 different species now called New Terra home. They worked together, learned together, and raised their children together as if it had always been this way. "Quite a view," said a familiar voice. Dongwu turned to see Tazara approaching. The elderly Keltharian looked exactly the same as she had 5 years ago. Her people aged very slowly compared to humans, but her crystal formations had grown more complex and beautiful, showing the wisdom and contentment of someone who had lived to